I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Board of Finance meeting for Monday, September 16th, 2013 to order. First order of business, public forum. Anyone wishing to address the board in public forum? Hearing none, let's move on to item 2, approved minutes. 2.1 would be the regular meeting minutes of July 15th, 2013. And the ever watchful Mr. Federici has realized that we don't have a quorum from those who were in attendance at that meeting this evening to pass those. So I will entertain a motion to table those for yet another meeting.
I'll make that motion to table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, all abstained. 2.2, regular meeting minutes of August 19th, 2013. Comments, questions, changes, deletions, etc.?
One small typo on page 1, item 1. There was a Boy Scout troop member here. It's troop 474. So delete that 0.
Okay. Anything
I
else?
have no other changes. A couple questions and comments after we get through changes.
Okay. Anyone? Mike, you have anything? Jonathan? Good?
Thank you.
Good. Motion to approve as amended.
So move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Item 3, correspondence. 3.1, standing building committee minutes. Mike, anything you think is of note?
Sure, a couple things. One, I was not at the meeting.
There you go, that's a
I was not able to attend at the last minute, so I was not able to ask the question about the prevailing wage that had been asked a couple
Right.
meetings ago. So if that is a question, we're going to carry that another month,
There you go.
if we could. As far as just really updating the public on a couple of things, and I'm just going to race through these in order. The Cox Window project is, the bulk of it's complete. There's a couple of outstanding items on that. The renovations on room B5 at Adams is almost complete. It's being utilized. There's just some cabinet work that needs to be done. Adams clock and public address system at Adams is installed and running. What I thought was interesting is the Cox Snow Guard project, which has been out there for quite a long time, is finally complete. And we got some extra ones. Good for the building committee.
Mike, those are those
Those are
items
the
that
snow
bent.
guards that go on the roof that
And they got crushed
they
under
got
that
crushed with
once
all
the-
that snow. Yeah. So that is complete. Adams Middle School HVAC upgrades are complete. There's just one outside air unit that needs to be installed. Facilities condition assessment has been forwarded electronically to the building committee. I believe I mentioned at the last meeting that we will eventually get a review or a report on that. But the building committee is going to look at that first. And the masonry work at Adams is complete, and the laboratory work at Melissa Jones is complete. So there were a lot of, these meeting minutes were from September 3rd, so there were a lot of commentary on projects completed over the summer. So
And Mike, to that Adams Middle School project, the repointing, there was some discussion about adding some additional work to the original project scope.
Yes.
Did that, so what's completed was
what's
the...
completed, it had that included, yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Anything else? Any other questions, Mike? Item 3.2, pension committee minutes. And I suspect when Sheila arrives, she'll have the financial statements. She normally passes those out. Anybody have any questions or comments here? The only thing I'd note, a significant number of retirements recently. And it looks like it's almost split down the middle between lump sum and lifetime payments. Is that changed? It seemed to be at one point that everybody was moving to the lump sum.
Well, the supervisors are prohibited now
That's true.
from getting lump sum, although none have retired,
Right, not in this.
not in this group.
batch.
And police have had not
Never
had lump
had-
sum
never had
for a
lump
while
sum.
now.
Yeah, I noticed a bulk of these were from the Board of Education, but it seemed to be pretty much split between, lifetime payments and the lump sum. So. All right. Anything else on pension? We'll reserve the right to ask Sheila when she gets here to pass the performance stuff. All right. Good. Item 4, review and accept the report of expenditures for the Board of Education for August 2013. Linda and Dr. Ellen Myers is the rotating Board of Ed expert on finances for the month.
Thank you. First of all, to follow up on what Mr. Hale said about the facilities needs assessment, there is a joint meeting Wednesday morning of the Facilities Committee of the Board of Ed and the Standing Building Committee to go over that study. So you guys should have a report fairly soon.
Quick question on that, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
Does that study rank or prioritize projects in terms of acuity or needs to be addressed? The A's, B's, and C's, or, these got to be done now, these, short-term, the other ones longer-term?
I just glanced at it, and I don't think that's in there. Have you seen it?
I haven't looked at it, haven't seen it.
But I
yet.
won't, don't hold me to that.
Okay.
Okay, first, before we get to the month of August of this year, I want to go back to the future a little bit and talk about a revision to fiscal year 2012-2013. And that is because towards the end of the year, we received new invoices related to tuition, special education transport, and contracted services, totaling $55,554.84. In addition, there was an expenditure of teachers' salaries of $6,221.46. That was offset by a credit of $11,960 from reimbursement from the high school building committee for relocation of the ropes course. So the net effect is that the unencumbered balance at the close of the fiscal year will be $75,398.55. And that, of course, will be returned to the town for your discretion.
So that's a change from the document we have in front of us dated August 12th, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
You should have received an additional set of financial reports for the 12-13 year. They were sent out
It was sent
Board of
out
Ed
by,
prior to the Board of Ed meeting last week. So you should have gotten them. If you didn't get them,
Would you?
I certainly can.
Thank you.
so now moving ahead to fiscal year 2013-2014, and we're going to talk about August of this year. Our expenditures for the month of August were $1,313,137.30. That is 7.65% of the budget as compared to 7.35% of the budget in the previous fiscal year. I went over all of these invoices, and it's clear that aside from salary and benefits, because it was summertime, most of the expenses had to do with preparation for opening school, ordering supplies, cleaning up, getting ready for school. So we're here to answer any questions you all may have about the warrants or anything else.
Just a quick question on some of the encumbrances, as it, safety, sanitation, and upkeep to building and grounds, almost 330,000 of that has been encumbered. What projects are we talking about with that, or are there multiples?
That is multiples. It's a lot of the testing and stuff that's done over the years, so it's a lot of blanket purchase orders. Pretty much for the whole year. Cliff encumbered everything.
A question relating back to the minutes on the 12th. I think you were talking about the surplus that you had in the 2012-2013 budget in Section 3. And it looked like there was $97,286.18 of unexpended and unencumbered balance. Was there also consideration that that might go towards the capital fund?
That's every year that we have a surplus, we request that the Board of Finance consider funding a capital fund, but it is your discretion as to what you do with it.
Okay, so after the reconciliation for the additional expenses you just went over, it's a balance of $75,398.
That's correct.
Okay, I apologize, I missed last meeting, so just
No, that's
get
fine.
back on track here.
Jonathan, that raises a good point. I think we have talked a little bit about having some discussions. I know it would involve the Finance Office, the First Selectman, as well as the Board of Education, and that is to see where we are relative to fund balance, what the expected contributions we make. There are a couple of items that we, I think, need to potentially address, one of which is the employee health fund, benefit fund, benefits or whatever, and the second would be a capital. But mindful of the fact that we are about to go out for substantial amount of bonding proceeds, that we want to make sure we adhere to the plan, which was to grow and get our undesignated fund balance to acceptable levels, the 5 or 6% threshold. So I think if I were to rank priorities today, that would probably be my first, which would be to continue to build the undesignated fund balance to get ourselves in a financial position or the perception of a financial position that the finance community would find attractive for the issuance of bonds. So, but it's a fair point.
I would agree completely with your point. I think that reserve fund is key for our bond rating, and that is the highest priority.
Any other questions?
You know, another question on the minutes.
Certainly.
It looks like Chef Soprano has left.
Yeah.
Is this the?
Yes.
Is this the I think I may have gotten confused here. Is this the newer person who took over the food service program?
Cipriano. He has indeed left. He has taken a position with Chartwell, which is a company that provides food services outside of districts. And we now have a interim food service director who started recently, last 2 weeks.
Couple weeks ago.
And she has come to us from Avon, highly recommended, and she's getting her feet wet.
Okay. Is this our second director who's come and gone in kind of a short period of time?
No, the first director was there for a while.
Well, then we had the one who was only there for
Oh,
6 weeks.
Yes,
Correct.
yes,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we had Chef Tim, who came September of last year, and left in July, August.
And I think I recall just recently, in the last couple of months, a month where the food service program was actually looking like it was turning around and getting into the black.
Well, they had a couple months where they did make some money. Their year-end loss was about $46,000,
Okay.
which the year before, I think it was like in the $75,000 range. So they did see some improvement, but it was still operating at a loss.
That is something, though.
This doesn't relate specifically to the financial documentation that we have here, but you're probably in the middle of starting to prepare the EDO, whatever numbers they are.
That's done,
It's done.
yes.
School enrollment numbers, how are they
Well, they-
relative to what we
We
had
got
projected?
as of the start of school, the total was down, I believe, 46 students, something like that.
The official enrollment numbers come out October 1st,
Right.
So we'll have the official numbers then.
That's across the entire system, 46 students.
in the entire system, and it's randomly distributed throughout all the grades, so
But nonetheless, it continues the trend.
it continues the trend. It also puts us low, significantly less, how do I phrase this? We have lost less students than our neighbors, who have lost many more students in their enrollment.
Madison in particular, I think you're
Yeah.
referring to.
Madison specifically, yes.
Geographical neighbors or the
DRGs.
DRGs?
I'm thinking of Madison.
Geographic, yeah.
I just wanted to make note of item 9.1, personnel item, also in the August 12th minutes. In response to a question, Mr. Freeman noted that a number of special education positions being filled are new and will be offset by an anticipated reduction in the tuition line as there are fewer outplacements as more students receive services in district. So this has been a concern I've often raised, and in my takeaway from the special education study that was done, we have certain measures that came to us in the study that indicated that we have capacity in-house to take on more students, but yet we still keep hiring anyway. So I'm hoping that the net reduction in the tuition line compared to the additional cost for the hiring will still result in some savings.
You have to look at what are the positions. The future study showed that we had overcapacity in paraprofessionals. But when we talk about bringing some very difficult students back into the district, we need teachers. We need highly skilled teachers who are trained in special ed. So they are in a different line, if you will, than the paraprofessional. We're feeling very optimistic that the net financially will be positive. And I'm feeling particularly optimistic that at the close of last fiscal year will be the highest percentage of expenditures for special education, including transportation, that we will as a town see in the near future, because as we bring students back, that number should go down, or the percentage should go down. The cost for each outplacement will go up because everything goes up.
If I'm not mistaken, these hires are the ones that were identified after the budget was established, after the 2013, 2014 budget was established. And it was based on the fact, as you just mentioned, that there were some opportunities to start to provide services in district that had been discussed as part of the study that Jonathan just referred to.
Absolutely.
But these were all post 2013, 2014 budget positions because of the anticipated offset in outplacement costs. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
And not only that, I want to add that we are also working together with our neighbors in Clinton and Branford in some of these new programs, which is something that we've wanted to do for years because it makes sense to do them jointly.
And Alan, a few months ago, we had an opportunity to see the autism program at Lakes. And it's really, you say teachers, and there are teachers, but really it's a team, interdisciplinary team. You have occupational therapists, psychologists, all working together with this group of students, at the grade school level where this started. And there were new hires, and they were necessary to make this work. And I don't think that's going to, I don't want anybody to think that's going to be the end of it, because then you have to deal with it at the middle school level, and ideally you'll then have a pipeline through which these students can stay in district throughout their, Guilford educational experience. And if that program was any indication, I mean, it was just awesome. The enthusiasm of this group of educators and the students just seemed to be absolutely.
And the parents, I had
comfortable.
forgotten that you were there, Lou, but parents came to us in tears, telling us they never expected their child to progress as well and as far as they did at that program at Lakes, even compared to their friends who were outplaced in special programs. And actually, next year, it is already projected to continue into Baldwin Middle School because these kids are getting older.
And I just happened to, in the warrants, just to sort of jump around a bit, I mean, I happened to circle, I mean, there's one program called Crystal Springs, evidently. I mean, just for, I'm not sure how many students it is, but there was a $24,279 payment to that one program for this warrant. And, you know, we've all seen just the expenses associated with the outplacements, which have continued to rise, and have been the cause of concern to really everybody. So I think this is to save money, we're going to have to spend some money to make this program work. And it appears to be certainly on track.
But over and above the dollars is that the quality of the education for
Yeah.
those children. No parent wants their child on a bus for an hour and a half to,
Yeah.
and if they could get the same or better services in Guilford, they want that.
On the minutes from the August 12th meeting, item 8.3, superintendent's intern, second paragraph of that. Dr. Freeman, sounds like you put a little warning out there that we, based on the new testing that the standardized testing, that we might anticipate lower scores or lower results. Now that was August 12th. Have those results been published yet? And did his, well, should I ask him who to bet on for football next weekend? Was he right, or was he, was he clairvoyant in that regard?
Alabama's a safe bet.
You think so?
You know, it's helpful when you compare yourselves to other districts
That's
in the
exactly where I was going to
DRG.
go with that, yeah.
And when the report came out, and it's now public, it's on the state website, compared to our colleagues in other comparable towns, we did well.
Okay.
So, no, we're not concerned. I think it's an artifact. This is the last year that the CMTs will be done. And we now move into the new Common Core curriculum and testing, so we're not concerned about that.
Alan, just to clarify something, the CMTs, those are the Connecticut Mastery Tests?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, if I could circle back to the food service that we discussed a little bit earlier, I had a question on that as well, which was this new director that we have it says hired on an interim basis. Does that mean there's a search ongoing now and that we can expect a replacement mid-year? Or is this expected to fill this year? Do we have any idea, like, where, I mean, because I know there's the ongoing efforts to try and, you know, address the profitability of that department, and I guess I'm sort of intrigued by the number of possible changes as well.
We have posted the position. We haven't made a decision yet whether this position is going to stay the interim for a year or whether we're going to interview and try and bring somebody in mid-year.
Okay.
We're looking at that yet. We just couldn't start the year without a food service director.
So this person who's now in that job knows there's the possibility it's interim
Yes.
and temporary, or possibly
Or she might
obligated
become
to-
the permanent one.
Okay. Okay, that's great.
Question on section 11.4, which was a comment Mr. Ireland made as liaison to the Guilford High School Building Committee. Mr. Ireland noted that the bids for the high school had been received and came in at 5% in favor of the town. He goes on to say that so the committee will be looking at various ad alternatives included in the bid package, which include a number of aesthetic items and items that are initially more expensive but save money in the long run on maintenance. So I guess I have two questions is, where were they able to get that kind of accounting on the high school budget to come up with a 5% figure? And then what additions have been made or have they since these notes?
I don't think it's accounting. I think it's the reality of where the vendors are bidding on projects.
Yeah, Mike probably be
Yeah.
addressing that later.
I could either
Now
address
is
it
a good
later or I
time
can
to-
address it now.
Why don't you take it
But
now?
Yeah,
The 5% is strictly, all of that has to do with how the bids came in. So, as Dr. Meyer said, it's not accounting, it's not found money, it's the $92 million budget. They came in, actually it's closer to 6% under now. The one thing that needs to be very, very well documented here is that 5 to 6% includes contingency. That is incredibly important because that's the owner's contingency, that's the contingency that should be in. 5% is exactly where you want to be, but we're not even out of the ground yet. So we need to keep every bit of that we can. And the building committee, I will tell you, I've been at the last couple of meetings, and they've been very, very careful about doing anything with that money. In fact, they have made no commitments of what to do with that quote-unquote extra 5 or 6%, because it really is an extra. It's contingency in case you find more ledge, in case any unknowns come up. So right now, we're in really good shape budget-wise, but it's early. And so they're keeping everything they can in the numbers.
Have
And
any
I could just-
alternatives been identified that they want to include now?
There are some items. I will tell you that one of the biggest items is the Black Box Theater. There is no commitment yet to either put that in the project or take it out. I can tell you that next Tuesday at the high school building committee meeting, there was a workshop last Tuesday I attended. There's going to be another meeting next week, which is public. Not that they're not public, they're all public, but will allow public forum. And so there are probably members of the community that are going to, and rightly so, lobby for that. But it's going to be dependent on cost, timing, a number of different issues that go into that. So that is probably the biggest item that's out there right now, both cost-wise and scope-wise. But everything else is, compared to that, fairly minimal. It might be finishes, it might be certain items that, again, as it mentioned, there might be more maintenance items. It'll save you maintenance, but you have to spend a little bit more money to get them in. But couldn't do anything with any of those alternates until you see how the numbers came back. And so that's where we are right now.
So is your understanding that this would be an assumption that we would not have to eat into the contingency fund, and then it would free up dollars for some of these alternatives?
No, I think you said that 5% includes the
It
contingency.
includes a contingency.
Right, I'm saying that the assumption is that we wouldn't use the contingency, wouldn't have to use the contingency money, and then that might free up
assumption
some
is that
dollars.
you use the contingency wisely if you feel you need to. And I'm going to I'm going to volley the ball back over to Dr. Meyer on this one. Because I do know, and it was fairly public because it was at a Board of Ed meeting, that I believe the Board of Ed said just because you have the money does not mean you spend the money. So the building committee heard that very loud and clear. And
Well-
so right now they're in good shape, but that's where they want to be right now. In 2 weeks, it might change, but it's dependent. It could change in 2 months. It could change next year at this time.
But if that 5% is earmarked for contingency, it seems that
It's earmarked for
we're going to need it
contingency.
for
You hold on to that
contingency first and
contingency
foremost.
As long as you can hold on to that contingency. If this was 18 months into the project and we were almost finished with it and you have 5% contingency, then, I mean, kudos to everybody involved. But right now, great number, too early to really tell where that's going to go.
Yeah, I think Murphy's Law is applicable to all projects.
It is to all projects, yeah. You never want to take a chance and then have it spent.
Hey, Mike, I will agree, I understand the Board of Education's position, and actually Chairman Bloss's rather emphatic position that we will not exceed the original allocation, and I believe the First Selectman's on the same page, and I think most everyone here is on the same page, but one of the things that has always concerned me about projects of this size and scope and this importance is 25 years from now, if somebody were to say, why didn't we consider this? You brought something in under budget that the voters had approved, and instead of spending an extra $500,000, we didn't do this. And in 25 years, the community is going to have to pay $5 million to get that same thing done later. So I think, and that's that very fine balancing act they're going to be in at some point. There are, where I think we're assuming that everything that's in the bid package, other than the alternatives, is stuff that we need to take care of today and a good estimate on what we're going to need to do in the future.
Specifically, the Black Box Theater was in the original educational specifications as drawn up by the Board of Education. So I think that that piece is in a different category than some of these other pieces. Our concern at the Board of Ed meeting was how much would a Black Box Theater cost at this point? And we didn't get an answer. So I'm hoping that the building committee will look into that, find out what the cost of doing it. There are a significant number of community people who are very interested in this. And I also know that the high school is thinking ahead about forming in the future a performing arts academy, and therefore that has some implications for a black box theater or not. So all of these are on the table, and Mr. Hoy, that goes into your question about 10 years from now, somebody going to say, why didn't they? Especially if we have a academy that's in that field, yeah.
I do want to make one note, and then I'll hold off anything else till later on, about the black box there, in case it's not clear. It was in the project. It was taken out of the project. It's not in the actual footprint of the school itself. It is an add-on. It is literally a black box that's added to the site right next to the building. So this is not, do you incorporate it back in and redesign the project or a portion of it? It is already not designed, but it's located, they're looking at different locations, but it's a separate entity. What the building committee right now is weighing, what they're weighing is the cost and the timing of when they'd have to make that deadline decision to be able to include it in the project. It is not in 2 weeks. There are actually several months before they have to really say, okay, we have to move forward or else it's going to cost us more money. But right now there are issues about incorporating the cost, and it, not so much as could you get it into the project with the contingency you have now, but it's a little bit early and the numbers seem to be a little bit high.
Can I ask a question about this black box theater? So it's a term we've heard any number of times. And one thing I've never understood is it alternative theater viewing space, or is this preparation space?
It's a little bit, actually, I should probably not answer this, but I'm just going by the meetings I've gone to. It is a really, it's a very flexible space. It could be theater, it could be classroom, it could be staging.
So it won't have built-in seats?
No, it won't.
Someone mentioned mock court as well.
It is a large space that could be for performance, for presentations, community use. You can rent it out. I mean, it is a very flexible space.
Okay, so it would.
So it's not fixed. It's not like having a second auditorium.
Okay,
that is what also
which would
something
be
I've
more.
heard is, what do we need a second auditorium for? It's not a second.
But I asked the question.
And
It's
its
all
max, it
flexible.
can seat 100.
So, but that would be removable folding seats.
Yes.
Okay, that's better.
All right, one more item from the minutes, Mr. Chairman, if you will. This is just a bit of a lighter note. In Section 6, it was mentioned that some correspondence was received recommending that high school start at a later time. I'm wondering if we can reset our alarms and sleep in, and 10 o'clock might be perfect.
I have to put on my hat as a pediatrician. It makes no sense to have adolescents get up at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning and then go to school and expect them to be alert and awake. All of the studies on achievement and sleep deprivation amongst adolescents tells us that the high school population should not start school that early in the morning. However, to change the start time, you have to change the end time, and that impacts on sports, jobs, and all sorts of other events.
Transportation.
And
I was
transportation.
thinking transportation, logistics.
Now, the town of Wilton, Connecticut, made an incremental change. Took them a year and a half to get it done. We're talking about, I think, 15 minutes later start time. But they accomplished it. And we had some community members come to the Board of Ed to talk about if Wilton can do it, why can't Guilford do it? And our next workshop for next week has that on the agenda to talk about the change in start time. But I personally feel it's really important that we have to address this because it makes no sense to have adolescents who are up late for studying and whatever else they're doing, then get up sleep deprived and go to school.
What is the start time then?
Good question.
7:25?
Yeah, so-
I'm only a couple of years.
7:25, and the kids typically are getting on the bus at
to,
7.5
My
hours.
neighborhood, it's 6:45.
Yeah.
And isn't there some biological reasons for this? Is it melatonin or something, production of certain chemicals at certain ages that it's, is there any truth to that?
Sure there is. And they need sleep.
Well, listen, my grandfather had a great bit of advice for me years ago. He said the sleep you get before midnight is just as good as the sleep you get after midnight.
Smart grandfather.
You think about it. Anyway, fine. Anything else?
Are we on to the actual?
Certainly.
All right. There was just it's pretty early in the process, but there's a few accounts that are running a little ahead. And one of them that just piqued my curiosity a little was heat. I was surprised that we were just a little bit ahead on expenditures for heat. And the other two that caught my eye were the paraprofessional line and the school nurses.
School nurses are working under a new contract, so therefore the expenditures compared to last year will be up.
yeah, and they worked, we had to have nurses work during the summer for the summer programs that we're running. So that's salaries for the summer programs where they had to be, as well as the paraprofessionals. We had paras working with the students during the summer. The heat line, I'll have to look into it a little bit more, and I can get back to you on that
It's so early
one.
in the process that, things are going to even out. I just noticed those couple accounts.
Any others?
I have a couple of warrant questions.
Warrant questions? Certainly.
It's funny, it touches on this heat question. On page 7, there's a invoice, 2 invoices for storage fees for oil and diesel fuel. I'm assuming we have some contract, long-term contract or something that we then need to store bulk fuel?
The contract that we had last year, we did not use all the gallons that the contract said we would use, so we prepaid for it, and they're storing it for us as we use it. So we have to pay the storage fees to use up the gallons that we had contracted for last year.
And that's interesting. So does that end up costing, does that still keep it, how much of the savings that we gathered by having the prepaid contract gets chewed up with that $6,700?
I'm not sure exactly how much. I'd have to look to see what the storage fees
And why
are.
what percentage of what we purchased is that amount of fuel?
I don't remember what the exact gallons were that we had unused. I can let you know.
I'd be interested in the percentage of what the total contract is that we had left over. I mean, if we're talking 3%, that's a pretty good guess, and okay, that happens. If it's 15%, then I'd be really curious how we missed that.
I had noted that same item, and I was wondering if it was all purely storage or if it was
Yeah.
also a cost for fuel mixed in.
No, it's purely a storage because we've already paid for the fuel.
Okay. And then there's on page 8 of the warrant, there's Guilford High School, a line item, $650, not giant, but it's called VIP stipend. I'm just curious what that is, and how I get on the list.
It's not very important person.
No, it's the Life Skills Program.
Okay.
They pay the students a salary,
Okay,
and they get this stipend
all right.
as their salary to help them learn how to budget money. And
So so that's money that's actually spent?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
they give the students a small salary amount, stipend
Interesting.
amount.
And then there's on page 13, there's evidently a sound system we rent for the graduation.
Yes.
I'm sort of surprised, somewhere in the town, we don't have a sound system that is available for this kind of event?
I raised the same question at the Finance Committee meeting, and I asked for a study to be done about
Page
how much
13.
it would cost to purchase
Yeah.
one, and see whether it can be amortized over the years. That led to a discussion about why do we have graduation on green in the new high school? We could have it at the high school, and everybody felt very strongly that we should continue to
The
have.
green is nice, but
But
so what did you guys, so you're looking into what it would cost to purchase one of these systems? I can't imagine there's not some occasion for other, organizations associated with the town that could use
Sure.
that, and
that's a good question.
okay. And, but I had one last item. No, that's it. I already asked about the Crystal
I'd like
Springs.
to go back to the East River Energy, the storage situation. Again, this will belie my knowledge of contracting for oil.
But is there a possibility of getting a buyback provision in our oil contracts with these folks? As opposed to us having to store oil? Obviously, we'd probably have to offer it at a discount. But the fact of the matter that we're paying $7,600 for pure storage, one would think that you might want to have a buyback provision in the contract. Now, do we guarantee a certain gallon amount that we're going to buy from them?
Yes,
And that guarantees the rate?
yes.
Yes.
My suspicion is they probably would entertain a buyback provision.
It actually would be more costly than the storage. The storage will go away probably next month because we'll start getting oil deliveries and the diesel has started.
Okay.
It usually only lasts for
But that's an
about 2 or 3
arbitrage
months.
game. We got oil we bought at last year's rates in storage versus oil we're buying at this year's rates. It's somewhat of a little bit of arbitrage
Oil that they purchased last year is at a lower rate.
than it is. Is
And
it-
what Sheila's saying, she's correct, if you tack on the storage fee, it's still going to be lower than what we would have to pay now.
For this year.
Yeah.
My assumption is that wouldn't always work out, though, with
The
fluctuation.
other
in
way,
rates.
they would like to take it back.
They take it
They'll
back.
say, forget about it. We've had that situation. And we say, no, not really.
Worth a question.
I got into the details a little bit myself, so I just have a couple of more questions as well. One of them was about the air filters. There's a pretty significant charge for air filters, about $7,000. And I was just curious, does that include the installation? Do you know if they come and actually install them, or is that just for material?
I believe we install them.
Okay. And then I just noticed that you were purchasing an iPad, and I was wondering, are you trying to purchase iPads for all administrators in the school, or?
No, most of the iPads that have been purchased were purchased for students.
Oh, they're for students?
Yes.
Okay.
And most of them are for student needs that are identified during their IEPs.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, and I think there's been some discussion about maybe giving people, students Kindles or devices that could store textbooks as opposed to buying the textbooks. So I guess that's a good thing to investigate.
Yeah, we haven't gotten into a whole bring your own device thing yet. We are encouraging in certain areas students to use what devices they do have.
Okay.
So that the board changed the policy a couple months ago to allow for the use of devices when appropriate and directed by the teacher for students to use their own devices in classrooms.
Okay. I mean, I'm kind of old-fashioned. I love having the teacher in the classroom, but I think maybe just to store the text from the books, there might be some opportunities there to save. Of course, it might help the children's backs, too.
Absolutely, will help their backs.
I got one more. This one
Certainly.
was unusual. This was on page 6 at the bottom. It looked like we made a payment to replace the tank on a school bus, and I believe you brought this to our attention in an earlier meeting. And I just wanted to clarify, is that how our contract works? Do
That's
we
not
need
on the
to-
school bus. That is the fuel tank that's in the bus yard that they use to fill the buses with the diesel fuel.
Okay, that makes more sense.
So, yeah, it's not on a bus, it's in the bus yard. I think the report just cuts it off We only have so much space that we can fit in a
But
description.
that's our responsibility?
Yes,
not
we own the bus yard.
Busing company? Okay.
We own the bus
I
yard and the
didn't
pump.
even know that. Thank you. That's it for me.
Anybody else? None?
I brought along copies of
saw
our
that.
proposed budget timeline for you to use.
Yeah, this is more extensive.
No, should be the same. I didn't realize you did get that one.
Yep.
Okay. I had highlighted on this one the 2 dates of your joint meetings. That was the only change on this one, because I just marked those off. So there's some additional copies
Thank
there if
you.
you want to pass them around.
Yeah, this draft was dated 9/9/13.
Yeah,
Yeah, this has the same date on it. I just highlighted those 2 dates in red so that you could see and make sure they get on your calendar. The 2 joint meetings, one in December, one in January.
just editorially, I have to say that those are probably some of the more valuable investment in time that our 2 boards spend. I'm thrilled about the collegiate and cooperative relationship that the Board of Education and the Board of Finance have developed over the years. We're able to sit down and have frank discussions, and it benefits the kids in school and it benefits the taxpayers. So I look forward to our future meetings.
I agree. Well, actually, we're going to have a little turnover on the board this year. Some people are leaving us. At the the October meeting, we'll probably do committee assignments. But we'll hold off on that. But I agree with you. I think those have been valuable for this board. If nothing, other than the fact that we aren't asking you folks the questions for the first time in February when you present your budgets.
Right.
We know what is in there, we know what has gone into those things, so I agree. Anything further? No. Thank you very much. Is there a motion to accept the report of expenditures from the Board of Education for August 2013 in the amount of $1,381,261? I heard it.
Guess I should let you read it first. So moved.
And a second? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Abstain? Any recusals? None? Item 5, review and approve the report of expenditures for the town government for August 2013. Good evening, Sheila. Good evening. And how are you? That's good.
I'm going to pass out, I thought Ken would be here tonight, so I was motivated to do the, no, I have one, those are the capital for the Board of Ed. I was a little scared.
Oh, boy.
2 pages, I think.
2 pages, yeah. So we'll get to that in a minute. Okay.
Please.
Okay, so we have August reports, and we'll start with revenue as usual. We've collected 51.48% of our revenue budget as of August 31st, compared to 51.86% at the end of last August. Still nothing to be concerned about. It's early in the year. Tax collections are a little bit lower than they were last year, 57.27 versus 52.79. But I still think it's too early to get concerned about any of these numbers. Some of them actually some of the department's revenue budgets look really good at this point in the year. Town clerk is at 33%. We should be at 16.6% at this point. Building department is at 25.74, so they're ahead. Ambulance, who would be at 8.3, is at 9.64, so they're also ahead. So I think overall revenue is in good shape for August. Even finance is better than last year. Still not where it should be, but
It's not because the interest rates are better, it's because of better budgeting, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
10?
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
The interest rates are almost non-existent.
Sheila, why is, I'm sure this is a timing issue, but the state revenue is 15 times what it was last year at this point.
Yeah, really, that's the ECS payment. That probably came in like September 1st instead of August 31st, or, it's just, it's clearly a
Okay, but-
timing.
Okay.
Just one odd question. I saw we got $5 of revenue from the revaluation. I scratched my head about that for a little bit.
It's interest.
Is
Could
it?
be, could be.
Okay. Terrific.
Revaluation used to be a special fund, and now it's part of the general fund.
And the other, you mentioned town clerk, but building permits are up as well.
Yes.
Any other questions on revenues? Hearing none. Expenditures.
Expenditures, we've obligated 31.4% compared to 30% last year. So we're up about almost a little under 1.5 percentage points. Still, I think it's timing, it's encumbrances. First department I looked at are the departments that we had to do transfers for at the end of last year, legal, for example. And legal is low. We've only had 1 month of billing, and it's very low, so that's fine. Public Works in general is probably causing the shift, and it's most likely due to encumbrances and also their work orders, their gas billing. If they're a little bit behind on that, which I didn't get a chance to check on, that's going to make a difference, and that's purely timing.
I'm okay with expenditures. So, like I said, I'm okay with expenditures. Anybody else have any questions?
Nope.
No?
Oh, actually, I do have a question from the detail on insurance. There's the last item in that section is a KERMA distribution of equity. It's actually a,
It's actually a payment that we received, and we only budgeted $10,000 because we really didn't know, and that was a conservative approach. So we ended up with,
4 times what you were expecting.
yes, and that's good.
Typically.
Yeah. We just don't know what we're going to get and how they're going to distribute the equity, the members'
and-
equity.
Because current is basically a mutual
Member,
company.
right.
Mutual
Okay,
company,
so
we
that's
share
a
the difference.
reflection of their
Profits, basically,
performance.
is what it
Right.
is, yeah.
Okay. But right above that is there's an item called police outside services, and that's a negative number.
Right, and that's also an offset to expenses, and usually I make that entry at the end of the year. That's the FICA that's charged to the outside contractors for police extra duty, and we move it back. Actually, that's not the FICA. There's a similar line in employee benefits. This is for the workers' comp insurance.
Okay. Okay.
Anything else? Nope. Warrants? These are two sets of warrants, right? There's one
No, you
2000
approved the July warrants
July
last
warrants.
month.
Okay.
A question on that first large check for CCM. I've probably asked before. I just was wondering what that payment is in a little more detail. It says municipal dues.
CCM is Connecticut Conference of Municipality, and those are the dues that we pay annually, and that allows us basically a whole lot of research that's done.
It's an association for municipal
Municipality.
services
Right, I
and
mean-
municipal.
It's a trade and lobbying organization.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But more than that, they provide seminars. They research. If you have a question about something, you
We
can access them.
request is, not charged because we're members.
Right.
You
we
should
use it a lot.
be getting a newsletter every month.
That's right, you should be on that
Or,
list.
yeah, CCM. Yeah, it's very good.
No,
If you want like comparative data
Yeah.
among
Right.
towns,
Right.
you would go to them, and they'll be able to help you with that. Or you can talk to the selectman's office if you need to, and they'll refer you there. But
Yeah.
it's a resource that's available
And
to
they-
all of us who are working for the town.
They keep us apprised on the state issues,
Useful.
the state budgets.
Plus, like Matt said, they do lobby on behalf of the towns and cities particularly during the legislative sessions.
Okay, on that note, maybe you can also enlighten me a little about the community investment that goes to the state.
Community investment is a check that goes every month. It has to do with the recording fees and a surcharge that the town clerk has to collect. It's about $17 per recording, and then we have to submit it up to the
You've explained
state.
it before.
Right,
Thank you for doing it again.
that's okay.
I had the questions regarding the $97,000. It says first allocation for the library. I mean, how many allocations, what is that for?
We pay their salaries directly from our payroll, and then their maintenance and their library books, all those other lines that you approved in the budget, we actually provide them payment, 2 checks a year.
So we just,
50%.
that's their general funds that are provided, rather than going through these reports, we give them
Yes.
allocations, and then they run a sub-budget essentially.
Yes.
I've got one more on the warrants, actually.
Well, I'm sorry, and you
go ahead.
review that? I mean, what's the oversight of that?
It is part of the audit process, so I do get it at the end of the year. They're a component unit of the town. They have their own tax ID number. They have their own operating budgets. We just provide them with a subsidy. So I don't get involved with approving their checks or their bills, but I do include it as part of their audit, and they also provide it to you during the budget process.
Okay. Okay.
This was a quick one on tax refunds. There's quite a few tax refunds going out, but some of them are pretty large dollars, $10,000, $5,000, $7,000. I was just curious, are those all overpayment of taxes, or?
Most likely, yes, they're always heavier at this time of the year, and it's usually due to refinancing or, sales, and the taxes are paid in advance, and then the mortgage company or bank overpaid.
Okay.
Any others, any warrants? Maybe you had a note, something else?
Yeah, I did. I just want to find the right page. I did.
I had a question on
Thanks,
explaining
Dave.
that.
Oh,
On
there it
the
is.
special fund checks, the first one, warrant date 7/16. Shellfish, description next, there's 2 entries. And there's one at the 7/16 and another one at 8/22. $1,700 and $3,400. What's that?
I don't know if they're the same as the seeds, but they're the actual, it's shellfish commission.
Okay, all right, okay.
So, I don't know the exact terminology, but that's what they,
Okay, yeah, I wasn't, shellfish is there.
it's a shellfish fund.
It's the, okay.
And I don't know exactly what they do with them. I guess they put
That's
them in the
fine.
water.
Yeah, they do, they drop them in the water.
Yeah.
They replenish
Until
the
everybody's ready to
clam
take them
beds.
out.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I had,
I don't know the term, I think it is seeding the beds, though.
yeah,
Clam
that's
beds.
exactly what it is.
If I can, jump back in. On the general fund, weekly checks, page 10, it's a public works entry, dues for something, this is just a great name. I mean, who says you don't enjoy this job? Casho?
Casho is a membership, it's an organization, not again, trade organization for public works and engineering companies.
So it's an acronym or something?
Yeah, don't
It's
ask
just
me
a
what the
great
hell it is.
name. Are you kidding me? And it's only, so there's $50 dues for that? I mean, it's
Yeah.
just an odd item. Okay. All right.
We've been paying it for years.
A couple of years ago, we received an award for our public works department, so I guess we...
It's like a big dollar sign. All right.
Anything else?
That's it.
Good. Capital project stuff? Anyone?
Got that usual question.
Certainly.
I know what the question is.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I sound like a broken record, Biscuit.
High school?
Yeah.
The high school, the committee just adopted a draft budget this week, or last Tuesday. And so I just received it. I have to do a little work with it, and you will have it next month, I promise.
Sure.
Just to back what you're saying is that they didn't want to release anything or get anything in your hands until the GMP was
Yes,
approved.
yes.
Now that the GMP is approved, now you got some good numbers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Others? Okay, on the projects, capital projects, medical benefits, a little more in line with our
Well,
projections.
Medical, a couple of comments. The yellow usually is the annualized average of the, the prior months, and I don't like to do that in July or August because it's not really meaningful, so I use the budget number,
Okay,
989,
Yep.
984, and that's giving us a deficit.
yep.
Now, if you go to the second page, I kind of reformatted this, and I gave you a lot of statistics, probably too many, but if you look at the first column, the projected column, and you look at, I tend now that the contracts, the number of contracts have been dropping, and that's sort of in the middle of the page under the gray line, it's not as meaningful to look at the claims in the aggregate and compare them year over year because there's less contracts, okay? So I think it's more meaningful to look at the cost per contract. So now if you go to the cost per contract for fiscal 2013-14, we're projecting a less than 1%, so a decrease of 0.5%.
Right.
And that's probably not going to happen, and that's what's happening with our
So far.
deficit projection. Overall, the budgeted is 4% in the aggregate less than last year, but that's not meaningful anymore because it claims there's less contracts. But I would have liked to see that on a per contract basis about 2% over last year.
Yeah, because our cost of contract between 2011-12 and 2012-13 went up by 16-17%, somewhere in that?
Probably.
Is that number about right?
Yep.
2,300 on 17? Yeah, it's relatively close.
That's not reflected here on this second page?
That is,
Eight-
as you look at the cost per contract, the gray line, in 2011, 2012, the cost per contract was 17,281, and the cost in 2012, 13 was 19,579. That's a significant increase,
Right.
which is sort of reverses the trend we'd seen, 7 or 8 years ago, we were looking at double-digit insurance increase costs in general. It seemed to have tapered off on us. We were under 10% for several years. But last year, and as was reflected in our experience last year, the overall insurance costs went up dramatically. And that's, again, my math isn't great, but that's on the order of 15 to 17%.
There's also data here about the stop loss and how we've utilized it.
Yes.
So I know the questions come up, so it's here for reference. And it should say stop loss.
You know what it means. All right. At this point, do you think we need to do anything relative to the medical benefits account?
Well, I think that it makes sense to wait until the audit is just about finalized, and then we'll decide about how we want to transfer within fund balance, between undesignated
Right.
and designated or assigned.
Okay.
And that way, we'll, have a better presentation for the audit report.
Right.
But I think I'd rather wait until we actually get the final number,
Right.
until we start
That's
making
fine. That's
decisions.
fine. I know you're probably pretty close to a number right now that's going to be within 1 or 2% of what the auditors
Yeah.
agree to. And I'm sure you're going to have an opinion about which way we want to go with some of that. But clearly, this is an issue that we don't want to allow to get to a point where it got to eight years or so, 8 years ago or so. So we want to be able to address
Goes
that.
against our policy, too.
Exactly, exactly. And again, it's, a designated fund balance, but this is going to affect our fund balance anyway.
True.
The way it's looked at. one way or the other. So it's really Peter and Paul. Okay. Any significant claims in there right now that's going to make this look worse next month? No? That's good news.
There are none that have reached 50% of the stop loss.
Or are anticipated to?
I don't know. They don't provide us with that information. I guess I could ask for a lower number, like any claims that are over 50,000, just to see.
That may make sense.
I'll do that.
Thank you.
I have a question, and I just loosely recall that there might have been something along with the Board of Education, the Board of Selectmen doing a rebalancing of the contributions for the medical.
Well,
Is that something that was in the works? I think I may have lost track of that.
That was
Has
done,
been
there was a change made in, I believe, February of 2000, or earlier this year, where the Board of Education reduced their contribution, largely based on the fact that when we had established their contribution for 2012, 2013, they had an estimate of contracts that exceeded the number of contracts that they actually had. So they basically backed it down by the actual number of contracts they had. And again, at the time, I think we expressed some concern about, moving forward with that kind of adjustment, mid-year adjustment in the future, because we base all of our budgets on what's going on here. I think what wound up happening was, even though their contracts came down, we didn't anticipate a 15 or 16% increase in the cost per contract. So what should have been a relatively easy exercise and a non-financially impacting exercise for this account turned out to have an impact on this account because of the dramatic increase in the cost per contract. And I had expressed some concerns, and I actually asked, I think I even asked a flippant question about, who basically determines what contributions that they make? Who makes that call? Could a Board of Education say we want to not make anymore? What are the contractual obligations? And we don't have any contractual obligations. This is all by agreement between the parties on the self-funding of the medical benefits account. And I think we talked about the fact that we might need to tighten that up at some point, that the process by which someone with a Board of Education would change their contribution, I think, needs to have some input from the Board of Selectmen as well as the Board of Finance. And I think the first Selectman agrees that,
Absolutely. We, meaning Board of Representatives from the school administration, Board of Ed, and myself, Sheila, Mitch, are meeting with our insurance consultant at Anthem. I don't remember the dates in October. It escapes me for the moment. And kind of get an analysis of where these costs are being generated from, which side of the budget, which might mean a reallocation of contributions. Okay. No, that's on the radar, definitely.
Yeah.
It would have been sooner, but we couldn't get all the parties together until October.
Does that answer?
Yep. Thank you.
Anything further? Building permits?
Looking favorable.
Yeah,
Great.
25%. Guilford Lakes Golf Course, any questions?
I have a question about the golf course. Certainly.
Ken, gentlemen.
If I'm understanding the latest numbers, the golf course is still bleeding dollars, even over the summer season. And I think maybe we need to think about some ways to turn it around. I'm not going to say I have a
Have the
way. I
answers.
suggested possibly selling some kind of rights for concessions. I don't even know if that's feasible. I think we just discussed it briefly at one meeting. But I think we maybe need to hear some ideas that might help turn the golf course around. I think it's a great part of the community, and I'd just like to see it turn around.
Joe, I don't know if you want to make a comment about the overall financial health and of the golf course and what's going on there.
Well, in spite of summer just passing us, it hasn't been a great summer for golf. July, we had some awfully hot weather, which I'm probably one of the crazy ones who likes to play at that.
That kind of weather.
But we had a lot of rain on weekends, and that's kind of the business you're in. But I agree with you, John, that we have to try other things. When you say concessions, and one of the problems is that in most golf courses, whether public or private, do allow alcohol or beer. We can't. It's a town property, which the ordinance prohibits any serving of any alcohol on town property, except with an exception granted by the Board of Selectmen. And we did that 2 weeks ago. St. George's Men's Club had a golf outing there that closed the course down for the entire day, and the golf course made out pretty good on that. But their draw was not only 18 holes, or steak dinner, was that beer and wine were being served. Now, the problem with doing that during the week, you're very close to Guilford Lake School, and that we wouldn't allow that on a weekend. So the commissioners are trying a lot of different, I guess, strategies. This past year, which is almost coming to a close, they had one set fee for residents of $199, which is dirt cheap, believe me. I don't think they're going to keep that fee. They'll raise it to about maybe $250. But when they had 325, 350, I think it was, they weren't getting a lot of members. Now they're getting a lot of members, which is going to reduce the amount of rounds that people pay for on a per round basis. But however, the thinking is the more members they get, they'll bring guests with them. So if we haven't, the golf course has not suffered by reducing that price, but they're still analyzing what to do. So they're trying different things. Yeah, I mean, it's well maintained, and maybe we maintain it too well. But I'll finish by saying every golf course that I'm aware of in the area is suffering. I mean, it's very easy. Matt, you can attest to this. Very easy to get a tee time. There were years when you couldn't get a tee time on a weekend.
And people are running promotions all over the state.
That's correct. That's correct. So it's just, the industry right now is suffering.
Maybe we should just tell our citizens to get out there and play a little more golf.
There you go.
I agree. Get out as often as you can. There is a couple of things to note. Bless you. As you look at the second set of numbers, the second package of numbers, the comparative statement of operations January to August, year over year, even taking out the operating transfer that the Board of Selectmen approved, revenues were up by 5,000 over the previous year, which is nothing to hang our hats on, but it is an improvement. My larger question, and again, this is I should have asked this question earlier, but as we look at the first packet that came, page 2, the statement of operations, the 2013-2014 budget, inclusive of the operating transfer, we're showing anticipated revenues of $204,000 with anticipated expenditures of $237,000. So we're in a deficit position again. Am I correct? Okay. Which will need to be addressed at some point.
Can I add something?
Sure, Mike.
This actually goes to what Mr. Maz was saying. I had the experience on Friday of going there in the afternoon, and it had rained for about 10 or 15 minutes, and I don't know what their decision is and when they make the decision to close, but I had arrived there with 2 or 3 other, well, at the time it was 2, it was supposed to be 3 other people to play, and they were walking out and leaving, and it had rained. But I think that goes to a couple things. First of all, at what point do they make that decision? I mean, is it safety of the course or this? I was a little bit confused. I mean, it rained for literally 15, 20 minutes and the sun came out. That was one issue. But the second one is it shows you how fickle the weather has been all year. I left my office in the morning, it was perfectly fine, got there, it rained. Now, they may have had, I don't want to say they closed for the, for a certain purpose or not, but again, going there and as soon as it rains like that and you get a downpour, how long is it going to last? And then the course is not open, and so that's the way the weather was all summer. And I remember that on 2 other instances, not at Guilford Lakes, but other courses as well, where it had rained and they had closed the course for a couple hours.
Did the golfers just leave on their own, or was the course closed?
They had roped it off.
They had roped it off, yeah. That's a decision that the
The
superintendent has to
superintendent
make.
makes that decision, and I, what I'm saying is I respect that decision. I was disappointed I couldn't play, but the sun was out, then it rained, then the sun comes back out again, and, we went to other places in Guilford to spend money, of course, but that was kind of the story of the whole summer. And last summer, I know it actually was worse, and I think that shows by the numbers, that the numbers were not good last year either.
I mean, the superintendent will close it if he feels the greens
Can't take it.
can't take it, there's an issue. The other reason they would close the golf course and get everybody off the course would be when lightning was approaching. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily questioning the decision, I want to make that clear. I mean, I'm sure there was a decision for it, but it just shows the trend that it's been all summer. And it was very frustrating at the time, but understanding exactly why that could be the case.
Particularly since you were so sad to leave your office early to go play golf, right?
Yeah, I put my hours in.
All right, anything else, Sheila? No. If not, is there a motion to approve the bills for the town in the month of August in the amount of $3,715,568?
I'll make that motion.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Any recusals?
No recusals.
No recusals. Excellent. Thank you, Sheila. Item 6, consider and take possible action on request of the Board of Selectmen with regard to capital plan purchases. Do we have something? I did not get, I was not in the office at all from 10 o'clock on. Deputy has got, okay. Did anybody else get it?
No, I didn't. I didn't get it.
Deputy Chief Hutchinson, how are you?
Excellent, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Sorry to make you sit through so much of this. We ought to just tell you to show up at 8:30 and...
First selectman suggested that, but I thought it was important to
you're
educate
good.
myself on
Good.
goings on here.
All
Goodness,
right.
So if I can give you a lead in as to
Yeah, if
what
you
we're
would,
talking about. The
exactly.
last time I was before this board, I think it was the last time, we talked about the incident command post vehicle that we were purchasing.
Right.
And in that conversation, we discussed peripherals that we planned on purchasing
Right.
within that bonding package.
Yeah.
So the vehicle has been delivered, and as a result of that, we've made a decision and a necessary decision for, and I think I gave you all my, I kept a copy.
Here,
Did I give
take-
too many?
take-
Yeah.
here you
I
go.
gave them all away.
We got this one over at the end of the table. That's-
So in order to operate this command post in the way that we see is most effective, these are the items as, again, as you recall, we said we'd be spending probably, and we weren't sure exactly, 15 to 25,000 more on the items to move forward. The item we're presenting tonight was approved by the Board of Selectmen today and previously by the Board of Police Commissioners, is the crime mapping package, the 814625. What that is, it's equipment and hardware. It's essentially survey tools that we use for mapping crime scenes and accident scenes. The way we work it now, there was unfortunately, just to give you a sense of what we're dealing with, there was unfortunately a fatal accident a couple weeks ago on Water Street. It was a real complicated scene that involved a lot of time with the road closed, where our guys basically take hand measurements. They're laying out tapes and doing triangulation, and then we plug those numbers into formulas to come up with speeds and yaws and things like that. So with this new equipment, and just an accident is just one example, we're going to cut the time down to fractions where, number one, the road is closed, and number two, we have extra bodies in there doing all these calculations and putting the information together for our investigation. So, so first off, the crime mapping package is what was approved today, and we were looking for you to approve the purchase of that. And the reason I included all this other information was to make you aware of the total numbers for this budget. The original item was a 185. As you can see, the vehicle price, and then the peripherals we've purchased and or plan to purchase moving forward, and what I like to call the surplus on the project of $48,561.01, which makes, I think, the crime mapping package more appealing for you guys.
It certainly does.
Again, we're looking to get the approval on the crime mapping package, and I added the other information
Okay.
because this is bonded item, so you're aware of what we're spending on the vehicle to make it operational, fully operational.
Can you just refresh our recollection what the vehicle, what kind of vehicle it is?
Sure, it's a Ford F-550, gas-powered, gas-run. The reason we ran it on gas is because we don't have a diesel fuel tank. We also don't, we found it difficult with our old vehicle, which was diesel-powered. We have to keep it plugged in to keep the engine block warm. So logistically, it didn't make sense for us. Also, there's a generator on board which pulls gasoline right from the tank, so that keeps the fuel in the generator fresh, and it makes it, again, logistically easier for us to do that. It's a spec'd out vehicle on the back. It's, you know, purpose-built for us, and I'd certainly welcome everybody, if you're going to be at the fair, it's going to be at the fair this weekend, to take a look, poke around inside there and see where the money went.
Good.
It's everything we had hoped it would be, and then a little more. So, I'm sorry? Yeah,
And
and
below
it's below budget. So in explaining what these peripherals are, the crime mapping package, the radio equipment install is all the communications equipment inside and the installation necessary for that. The tablets are what they exactly are, iPad tablets that are going to be used for, number one, running that crime mapping package. We do statements, we do reports, we do, there's 3 workstations within the vehicle, so while all these investigations are going on, we don't have to run back and forth to the station to get the work done.
So you
We can
put it-
type warrants, we
right
can
there.
type search warrants, we can do all the work we need to do within the vehicle itself. The graphics is simply the graphics package on the outside, and the $895 for the Crime Zone software is an extension of the crime mapping package, which allows us to do more detailed work in smaller rooms, smaller areas if we have a crime scene. It basically has what you would see in a CAD program with bedrooms and bathrooms, and it lays out, and we can plot points for evidence and information. It plugs it right in and gives a more accurate, detailed picture of what we're trying to display.
Good. Makes your job easier
It does make it easier, quicker, and less expensive.
and more
in the
effective,
long run.
less expensive, exactly.
Just a quick question. Didn't we already approve the command vehicle? So
You approved the vehicle, but this is the additional equipment that goes into it. That all of that equipment, including the vehicle itself, is part of the bond
Right.
appropriation.
Right, but we
So
already
that's why they're
approved-
coming back to you.
All right, did we already approve the 116,354 for the vehicle?
Yeah, we haven't. You did approve
So,
it, yes.
now, I just want to make sure we get the motion correct
Okay,
here.
yes.
But in the
We're only adding these peripheral items here.
That's correct.
For this evening's
And
purpose.
I told the deputy, we spoke about it, I said, put whatever else you need, and we'll just have one more motion to close it
That's
out
fine.
on your end.
Sure you got everything you need?
Well, and in fact, the numbers on the radio, there's an estimate, which is actually a little high, so it's probably going to come in a little lower. There's an estimate on labor on some of the radio install stuff from Tactical locally, so.
This may be completely obvious, but the radio that's being installed here, and we're making a lot of upgrades and changes to the communication system in the town, so
It's all.
I'm presuming this is up to the minute.
Yeah, same vendor, so he knows what the
Okay, so we're not
upgrades
going to
are
have to be
locally.
replacing anything 2 years from now?
No, I would hope not.
Okay.
Now, can I just clarify something?
Certainly.
I think we budgeted 185, and we approved that in the capital spending plan, and now the vehicles come in much lower, but there's a few extra peripherals, or just the one extra?
How much did you budget, John?
He's 5.
Didn't we budget 185? for the
185,
vehicle?
that's correct. That includes all of the equipment.
And the peripherals?
Well, yeah, same thing, yeah.
Okay.
The truck, the vehicle and the equipment. yeah.
So the only difference here is the crime package is just a new item that was not originally...
The crime.
Oh, no,
No,
no.
no, no, that's in the budget.
Oh, okay.
It's in the budget, but you haven't approved, what you did approve was the vehicle itself.
You know the process.
So we're going to be
Yeah.
approving
Call.
$20,000 or whatever. it
Thank
is.
you.
Well, I was going to say we should get this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have to add it.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve the expenditure, which was approved unanimously by the Board of Selectmen this morning, for the 5 items listed on the documentation we have in front of us below the vehicle item? That's it. Is there a motion?
So move. Do you want to?
Can I just clarify? I don't want you to be mistaken. What the Board of Selectmen approved this morning was a bid for the $8,000.
Just the 8,000?
8,000. We, as the Board of
Fine.
Selectmen, do not have to approve each individual item because it's below the bid threshold.
Fine.
What this board has to do is release the entire bond money
Right.
to complete the
Well,
project.
We've already released
Yeah, right.
116.
Right.
Now we're releasing another.
It's
nearly-
convoluted, but
Right.
that's the way we have to do it.
And
I take that back then. Is there a motion to approve the expenditure for the 5 items listed below the vehicle item on the documentation that has been provided to us this evening by Deputy Chief Hutchinson?
So move.
And I'll second that, but I do have a comment, question. This material, this would finish what we need to finish this vehicle and have it operational.
Correct.
Okay.
We actually, as a matter of fact, used it at the accident a couple weeks ago without this stuff, so.
Without this
Without the
material.
other stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Any further comments, questions? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Good.
And one other comment about that, then, this 48,561 that's on here is unexpended, but previously budgeted bonding. And so that-
Previously authorized.
Authorized. We've been through this. And so, that's not going to get allocated someplace else, it's just
No, you'll see it on Sheila's report
as unused.
as a balance
Right.
available.
It's part of the whole
Okay.
authorization
Yeah.
that included other public safety projects.
Okay.
So that really is my point, it could get used in another public safety.
Within the same bond,
It could.
bond issue.
Okay.
And just one other, that could actually go up from what I just heard. For example, the radio equipment install.
Could be cheaper.
Could be actually less. So that surplus number could actually even go up a little bit more.
It's not really a surplus, it's an unexpended
Unexpended, yeah.
unexpended authorization.
That's why we're kind of.
Thank you.
I
for
use
your-
language to make it sound better.
It does sound. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Item 7, committee reports. Mike? Oh, certainly.
Karen said that she sent you an email. You probably haven't gotten it.
I was not in the office all day.
Oh,
today,
okay. The Board of Selectmen, okay, the Board of Selectmen approved 2 bids that relate to bonding. So we can either put it on the agenda, you can for next meeting, or I can present it right now.
so
It's
Present it now.
okay.
Let's give it to them.
Get my mouth shut. I never get a chance to do that. Okay, what the Board of Selectmen approved this morning was the awarding of a bid for the Jacobs Beach Boardwalk in the amount of $364,933, which is covered in our capital plan to be financed through bonding of $400,000. So
This is phase 2.
Phase 2, and it's pretty much going to complete the project
Project.
because we have the $500,000 steep grant,
Right, right.
$400,000 from the bond, that's $900,000. And, I mean, there's going to be some money left for, but right now, that's it.
That's it.
Okay.
Question?
Where does that leave those shade structures that have been the subject of a lot of discussion?
That is nowhere in the budget at this point.
So they're not.
It might be in their plan further down the road, but there's no money appropriated for that at all.
So those will not appear, at least through this.
In the foreseeable future, right?
Okay.
I mean, it's not even in the 5-year capital plan,
Okay.
okay, because the 400,000 was tied, I don't have it, probably have my folder, for beach improvements. And 364 is pretty much going to eat up most of that.
And the repairs, renovations really to the bathroom facilities, that was part of the first phase?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
That's
And there is a little bit more for sealing the floor. I mean, minor items, which either will come out of here, or I suggested this morning that if it's really minor expenses, that why even bond it, just take it out of Park and Rec's operating budget. Okay.
Joe, how much did you say that number is?
364,933.
Okay.
Okay. Now that's- We came in, the bids, so for your information, there was 2 bids. It came in at a higher number, but there was a deduct of $30,000
Okay.
because we shortened the length of the
Length of the boardwalk.
Yeah.
Good. Any further questions? Is there a motion to approve the 364,000?
364,933.
933 for Phase 2 of the Jacobs Beach project?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? None.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
I thought you said there were 2 items, just that?
That was the
That was the
second.
second
one.
item?
First one
Yeah,
was
we did the
facility
first one.
plan.
But I'm sort of curious of what you said about, Joe, you shortened the boardwalk. You almost made it.
Well, I know
Close.
it's story of my life.
Which side did you, is it being shortened? I mean, is it not going to reach the
No,
bathroom
no,
side?
no, it was supposed to, it goes from the playground to the bathhouse.
Yeah,
Okay, the original plan, playground and circle around the bathhouse. Okay, so they're stopping at the entrance to the
bathhouse.
bathhouse. Okay.
circle around, yeah, so that it'll go around to the back side of
Where
it.
the
To
showers
the
are.
restrooms and stuff,
Where
they're
the
gonna leave it
showers
stopping and then have the surface they have now, which I think is
Like an
stone dust
asphalt,
or something.
okay.
By the shower.
Yeah, okay,
Thank you, Joe.
thank you.
Thank you.
Committee reports. Mike, anything you want to further on the Guilford High School Building Committee other than?
Only one thing,
That would be?
and it's a date that I want to put out there to the board. Very easy one to remember. 11, 12, 13. November 12th, I don't know what day that is. I believe it probably is a Tuesday, but I just wanted to let you know that all 3 boards are going to receive an update slash presentation from the building committee on the project at that time,
November 12th?
November 12th. I will reconfirm that as the time gets closer in October. I don't have a time, I don't have a location, but I would assume that it's going to happen in coordination with the building committee.
Okay.
Actually, the 5th, yeah, the 5th is election.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 12th is Tuesday.
Good. Thank you. Old business. New business. I have one item. As we move into the election season, I was reminded that we need to review and possibly take action on elected official salaries. It was in discussions last week before with Mitch Goldblatt. He's pulled together some comparative information, just as to lay out the process. We've always done this prior to an election. We set the salaries for the elected officials. That would be the first selectman, the board of selectmen, and the registrar of voters. No, registrar of voters. Yes, we do the registrars as well. And we need to do that prior to November's meeting. So I'd like to put together a subcommittee to get together in rather short order so that we make a presentation at the October meeting. And I'm looking for anyone who wants to volunteer. I'll sit on that commission.
I'll
Jonathan?
join you, Matt. There we go.
Good. 3 of us? Thank you, Karen. I will forward to you the materials that Mitch supplied to me. I asked for comparisons, et cetera, so. Just, I think it's fair to note, the current first selectman has not taken full advantage of the salary structure we put in place for the first selectman's office. He had declined to take the last increase. So what we will be looking at is the position rate, not the current incumbent's rate. We're going to look at the position rate. And that's why we do this prior to an election, because we're not doing it for an individual, we're doing it for a position. Okay? I'll get something, I'll shoot that information to you and throw a couple of days together that we can maybe sit down with Mitch. Does that work?
It does.
Thank you.
No more new business?
New business, any other?
This is actually just a question about the revaluation. I think I've asked it before, and I did forget the answer. When will we have some information about the results of the revaluation?
No sooner than December.
December.
Right, you have to go to the October, it's as of the October 1st, 2013 grand list.
Is that the only time when we get the numbers before January 31st?
That's right, isn't it? Yeah. The only reason you get them is everybody gets those mailed.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. Which does say that it could be done earlier.
It's never going to happen.
No. That's, we're not going there. Any other new business? Public forum? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? None. Thank you all.